92% of people do not achieve their goals because they're not detailed, they don't have a plan, and you set them every beginning of the year, and here we are, and we're at the end of the year. Have you gotten closer to your goals? Well, what we're going to talk about is how to actually set and establish SMART goals. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It is your girl, Lori, and I am so excited to be here. This is going into Thanksgiving week. So if you are here in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving this upcoming week. So in my world, I feel like it's just another day, just because every day I try to be grateful and I try to have gratitude. So I don't really make it that big of a deal, but it is nice to watch football and make some good food and just, spend some time with my people. And yeah, it's great. But every day for me is Thanksgiving. So and I think it should be every day for you too, no matter where you live, not just in the United States. So going into the end of the year is usually the time, I know for me, and, I've already gotten a lot of dates on my calendar marked off or open or whatever for 2024. And I like to kind of be ahead of the game. I am not a fan of resolutions on New Year's Day. Like, I'm making a New Year's resolution. Not a big fan of it because it's just another reason to put something off. Well, I can start doing that the first of the year. I can start doing that on Monday. No, you can start doing it today. Right? So I don't really believe in resolutions, but I do like to have a word of the year. This year was simplicity. I'll reevaluate and see if I want to keep that again this year or what I want to do, but then I build my entire year around that. So part of setting goals is knowing what you want in the first place. And we're going to talk about what are SMART goals, right? So SMART, it's an acronym and it has a meaning to it. So we're going to go through each one of those here in a bit. And over on Patreon, do not forget, on Patreon, you also get a worksheet. So it gives you areas and then it gives you an example. It'll give you a couple of different examples. There's like 7 examples on where you can kind of see how we can put all of those things together. And I try to make sure that you have those worksheets so you can always reference them. So if that's your jam, please visit me over at patreon.com/the positivity experience. Or you can just go anywhere that you're getting the show right now in the description, and there's a clickable link and you can go right on over there and do that. So let's talk about these goals. So, well, okay. And I'll give you an example of what a SMART goal is. And, I want to make sure that in each bonus episode that I give for the abundance tier, that, going into 2024, sometimes they're going to be videos, right? Sometimes they're going to be videos. And so I'm putting out a plan, but it has to be specific. So SMART goals is going to do several different things in your world, in your life. And it's going to make it to where you get closer to that 8% of people who actually do accomplish what their goals are. You might not accomplish them all, but the ones that mean the most to you. So SMART stands for specific, okay, but it's also clarity, right? You're getting clarity and specification on your goals, on your why. Measurability. So you have to be able to measure it. You just can't be like, you know what? I think I'm going to go lose 20 pounds. Yeah, that what does that even mean? Like, you got to be able to measure it. Attainability. It's got to be attainable, right? You can't just be like, okay, well, these are my goals and I'll save up $100,000 this year. And yeah, it's probably not attainable, right? So this is why a lot of goals aren't really goals. They're just wishes. And so you want to be able to differentiate between wishing of something and actually truly setting a goal and knowing why. It also has to be relevant, right? So you might have a plan for retirement, let's say, but retirement isn't going to be this year, at least not unless you have to, right? And so why would you, it's great to work towards that, but that should never be like a main goal this year. It has to be relevant to where you are, and it must be time bound. This is where people do that sort of fall off the rails. It's either not measurable, it's not time based. It's like, I think I want to start, pickleball, or I want to start doing this. Okay. Well, when? Well, I'm gonna. Yeah, that's not a goal. That's just a wish. That's just a desire. And again, 92, this is like proven, 92% of people who start to set a goal at the beginning of the year, they just don't reach them. Number one, you might be trying to do too many goals in one year. Like, you know what? You might not be able to move and then, start a new relationship. And then save $10,000 and start a new business and write 3 books. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So this is why your first step, before we can even set a goal to know what it is that you want and why, you have to know what it is that you want and your why, right? It just can't be based in, well, because I want more money. Well, yes, but you should never do anything just for more money. There better be something a heck of a lot more concrete there for you, because if not, it's going to be problematic for you. So your goals can start becoming desires. It's like if you watch Marie Kondo, if you watch Home Edit, and then you go, you know what? I'm going this year, right? You go, I'm going this year to declutter my entire house. Okay. Yeah, that's not time bound. That's not time. It's not specific enough. It's not measurable. And you're just like, by the end of the year, you have no direction. And you have to be in love with micro goaling, meaning you have to be willing to do the mundane, boring tasks, the things that are hard, the things that you don't want to do. And I always say, try to set those up early in the day, right? Like, let's say you knew that, doing in your email, it was mundane and you didn't really like it. Good, do that first, right? That's why at the beginning of the week, I usually try to work my legs because it's my least favorite part of my body to work. So I got to do it immediately, right? So you have to be able to challenge yourself and know that these goals aren't just going to like jump into your lap. And it can't just be a thought, right? So instead of saying, okay, I just watched Marie Kondo and Home Edit, and I'm going to declutter my entire house this year. Instead of that, okay, you say, you know what? This year, if I'm going to declutter, what will that plan look like? Where will I start? I'll start in my closet. Okay, let's say you do that. All right, so how much time are you going to spend each day or each week in that closet? Let's say you say, okay, an hour a week. All right, and when do you want this completed by? I'd like to get it completed by a month. Okay, let's just say, because you're going to commit an hour or whatever. Okay, now we're getting specific. Now we're getting measurable, but you also have to show up. You have to show up. So that's why it has to be relevant and it has to be attainable. So if you're like, well, I want this whole house decluttered and I'm going to do it in a weekend. No, you're not. You will not do it in a weekend. No. And you don't even have time to accurately, I can't even say the word, accurately prepare, right? Like everybody wants to go buy the pretty little baskets. You're on Amazon, you're on the Container Store, you're in Target, you're doing all of these things. You don't even have a strategy. You're just going to buy the cute things. Well, you don't have a strategy. The cute things come later. The storage for it, that's later. That's the easy part. Because all you're going to do is you're going to start, the more things you have, the more reason you're going to find to fill them. So don't bring things into the house until you're ready, but that would come from these SMART goals. So there's areas of your life that you have to say, okay, where are these SMART goals or where do goals even need to happen? Well, again, you have to know what it is that you want and why. It cannot be instant gratification and it cannot be an instant fix. It has to have clarity and specification. Okay, so you have to be specific, because what it does is it forces you to define what your actual objective is, right? With the specificity, because it helps you understand exactly what it is that you're working towards, right? It doesn't leave it vague or ambiguous, or it just doesn't. So it's forcing you to go, okay, well, what do I want? You could say you want to declutter the house, but let's pump our brakes there and let's go down even deeper. So when you get specific, it does force you to kind of go, well, do I want that in the first place? Because what you will find, I promise you will find this when you're setting your goals. You might be like, well, I don't even know, I think I want to do that, but I'm not sure. Because what it's going to do is if you're putting a time bound to that, you might be like, oh God, do I even want to commit to that? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't want to do the work. And I don't mean it like, oh, you just don't want to do the work. I mean, maybe it's not important to you. So it does force you to kind of drill down your goals a little bit more, so they're not just all wishy-washy or vague, and there's not too many of them, right? So this will really help you a lot. Now, the measurability is going to be really important. So when you make your goals measurable, you create a very tangible way. This is why the micro goal thing is very, very important to track your progress, right? It's not just about reaching the end. It's about monitoring how far you come, right? That gets you that fake thing called motivation. That gives you more inspired, right? Because if you could see 10 things that you're checking off, and it could be something simple, get up, brush my teeth, check, right? Whatever the case is, if you're checking that off, it is also scientifically proven that your brain loves that accomplishment, right? That's why we go for the instant gratification. So if you can give yourself part of this journey on the measurability to it, you got to be able to measure it, right? It just can't be like, well, this is what I thought. Everybody tries to do things in their head. They try to avoid doing the 5 journals. They avoid trying to get SMART goals. You just have this all in your head and you're going to just try to figure it out. That is the worst thing for your brain. And it's just not achievable. I mean, it's literally proven, but that by writing things down versus storing them in your head or even just putting them on your phone, yeah, you're more apt to remember them, and you're more apt to be inclined to actually complete them. So you have to ask yourself, how are you going to measure it? So this is where you'll see things like calorie tracking, like, like a MyFitnessPal or something like that. Oh, okay. Well, it's measurable, right? You're measuring it. Or like I have my Apple Watch and I also have a Samsung Watch, and both of them will track like, your steps and other things, other variables, but it's tracking it, and that's measurability. So that's giving you the measurability that you wouldn't have if you're just like, here's a thought, here's what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, how are you going to measure it? And so you want to be, going back to the first one, you want to be very specific in your goals, and it has to be measurable. If you're not measuring, and again, you'll see that sort of an example of that over on that worksheet on Patreon, but you want to be able to track things, because your brain, if you can't see the steps that you're taking and you're still looking at all the things you got to do, it's going to be very discouraging, right? Like if you're hiking up Mount Everest, which is going to take you some time because you don't do it in a day. You can't. Even if you could, you shouldn't. I mean, you can't. It would kill you, right? You've got to be able to acclimate. So as you go up, instead of always looking and going, oh my God, I still have so much more of this mountain to hike. Well, yes, but let's take a look back and go, oh my goodness, look at that. I made some progress. See, you don't celebrate your small steps. It's almost like you crap on them. You're like, oh yeah, I still have so much to do. It's like you don't even give yourself. It's like when people graduate high school, if they're going to go into college or something, they're like, yeah, okay, I graduated. I still have a lot of education or a lot of certifications or whatever the case may be. Yeah, but you just finished, in most places, 13 years of school if you're counting kindergarten, maybe 14 if you're in pre-K. Okay. Why don't you yes, you have big goals, but let's just celebrate a little bit. So you do have to celebrate the baby steps, because if you're not celebrating them, it's going to be a problem. So that's why you also want the measurability, not just to complete the task, but because you want to be able to give yourself little rewards along the way, because you have to. Now, so that's your S, that's your M. What's your A? Attainability, right? These goals have to be attainable. Are you going to lose 150 pounds in a year? No. And if you do, that might not be the healthiest thing on the planet. When you're setting achievable goals, number one, you're definitely you're going to be able to meet those a lot quicker than if they're out of control and not that something that you can attain. And then you're going to be really discouraged and you're going to feel like you can't get anything done. Right? So when you're setting the achievable goals, it's ensuring you that it's within reach, right? Like if I said to you, hey, you know what? Let's just drive to California today. Well, first of all, it's not going to be in a day. And you might be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, even if you were just like, sure. Well, I mean, is it attainable? Is it attainable to say, well, we could do it in 3 days? I mean, in theory, you could. But that's like with constant driving, minimal stops. Like, is that really attainable? So sometimes you can have these big goals, but so in that case, I'd say, okay, let's get to California in a week and a half. And let's make some stops. Let's have some fun. Let's go here. Let's go there. You make it fun. Well, it has to be attainable, because if it's not, you are going to set yourself up for failure and, frustration. It's going to be mostly frustration, because you're going to be like, what is wrong with me? I can never accomplish anything. Well, yeah. I mean, now they have to be challenging, right? You do have to be challenged. It can't just be all easy breezy, but it must be realistic. Right? Which will go into the next one. But it has to be achievable. It has to be attainable. And it must be realistic. We all have big dreams. And babe, I'm going to tell you, dream big. Dream big. Never, ever reach the height of your dreams. Right? But because essentially, the universe is very plentiful. You'll have tons and tons and tons of abundance. But you're still one person. And you can't, certain things, if they're not attainable, you're going to get very discouraged. And you're going to be like, well, every time I try this, I fail. Every time I do this, well, yeah, because maybe you're trying to do too much. And again, going back to the first thing I said to you, every goal can't be reached in a year. Every goal can't be reached in a week. You got to be realistic, which is going to go into the next one, right? Which is relevancy. Relevancy and realistic and relevancy. All right. It has to be relevant. It has to be, it does tie into a broader aspiration that you have for yourself, but it has to be relevant to your life or to your job. If it aligns with your values, if it provides meaning for you, a goal for somebody else will never be one that, even if you reach it, you're not going to really appreciate it, because it's not a goal that you're doing for yourself. So is it relevant and realistic to you? Or is it that you're so focused on everybody else? Is it that you want to do this to play it safe? Is it you're going to do this because, you know what? This is what everybody in your family has done. You know what? You're in a small town. Everybody has been in that town. All of your ancestors grew up in the town. And you're like, I want to get out of this town. Like, I'm blowing this popsicle stand. Like, let's go. And then you get in your head and you go, oh, and then you're letting everybody's passive aggressiveness come in, and they're people pleasing. Your people pleasing is kicking into high gear. You cannot do that, because if you want to go, then go. Now make a plan. Don't just roll out. Like, make a plan. But it has to be relevant to you, because if you're making goals that aren't relevant to you, it's going to be really difficult for you to find joy in anything. Yes, we all have to do certain things we don't want to, paying bills, paying taxes. There's a lot of things that you're not going to find joy in, but you got to have gratitude for them, right? You find gratitude, you find peace, and you find all of those things in these things. But the reality is, if it's not relevant to you, you're going to feel very, very stuck. Okay. So this often goes in alignment with when people go, I feel so stuck. Like, I just feel flat. That's always a good word I like to use, because sometimes you don't always know how you feel, or you can't really put it into words, but you don't feel good. You don't feel bad. You don't feel numb, but you're just flat, like a flat Coca-Cola. Well, somebody left you open and you're just, right? So a lot of that will come from feeling like you have no purpose, because you're too busy trying to make sure everybody else is good and dotting all the I's and crossing the T's and conforming, and it becomes a problem. So if it is not relevant to you and not realistic to you, it is not a goal that you should be focusing on, right? Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that you have to. See, that's the beautiful thing, is a lot of this goes into you stepping outside of your comfort zone, allowing yourself to spread your wings, do the things that are beneficial to you. Okay. Now, this time-bound thing, that's your T. So we have SMART, SMART. So that's where the acronym is. So time-bound, this is very important. And it can't be by the end of the year. Now, if you say, okay, these are some big goals that I'm going to do. Like, let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to set up my 2024 and this is what I would like to eventually accomplish this year. Okay. Again, relevant, realistic. Now, you look at that and now you, okay, let me break these down into the micro goals and let me put time onto this, right? Because any time that you have time based, this is why in school, they'll say, especially like in college, they'll say, okay, this assignment is due on the 15th. Okay. And it's the 1st. Well, you could either wait till the very last minute or you can take your time and do it. But at the end of the day, it's due here. It is time based, right? So there's a reason for that. When you go into work or when you're working and let's say you have your set hours, well, it's time bound. So you kind of know what you're getting. There's not a lot of thought process into it because you're just, okay, well, this is like what it is. But establishing a time frame, it provides you a sense of urgency. It really does. And it actually prevents procrastination because, you know, at the end of the day, I know you're like, well, I mean, I could still just like not do it. Well, you could. You could always not do it. You could not do a lot of things in life. But it's going to prevent the procrastination because if you're just like, yeah, this is what I want to do by December. Well, we're not even in January. We're still in November right now. So, and I'm saying December of next year, you know, so now you're like, okay, well, I'd like to get that done. And then you start putting things off and you're like, well, I mean, I still have till December. Now it's June. And I ask you, oh, I know that you said that you were working on whatever. Yeah, I got that coming. So that's what I had to do with my book. Now I actually had to change it because when I redid it, because I redid it to, it's a whole process. But as I was not redoing the book, but sort of the format to it, I had to change the time bound, right? So sometimes you're not just going to meet that deadline, but let that be the exception to the rule. Because it will also help you prioritize your tasks and it helps you stay focused in completing the goal in a defined period. And if you are like me and you have ADHD and/or anxiety and/or depression and/or things that your brain just goes in a million different places, you have no idea how important measurable, time-bound goals are. It's not even like, yeah, do this and you'll be successful. Do this so you can like get some of that chaos out of your head. Because yeah, you will be successful or you potentially can be successful. But yes, this is very, very important. And I think that's the biggest thing for you, right? Is realizing that because what happens is, and think about how this works. If you say, okay, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, I'm going to declutter my house. This is off by the end of 2024. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to declutter my house. I'm going to travel more. And I'm going to save $10,000 this year. And okay, so now you have like all these things. So it sounds all good. You're like, yeah, 2024 is my year, baby. Okay. Well, now you have to put time on this. In what amount of time do you think it's realistic that you're going to achieve this? Give yourself a deadline. This is my deadline, right? I'll give you an example. My son, he's really ready to move out of Maryland and he wants to do that by this summer. So, and he has given himself a time by the end of July. Okay. Like that's it. Like by the end of the July, if not maybe even a little bit before, he wants to be in a place, have his job, have an apartment, which means he now has a plan that in the spring, and I'm going to ride with him. We're going to look at some places down in the Carolinas and, you know, it's a process. So when you have, if you're like, well, I'd like to move. Well, okay. Well, like what kind of time period? Well, I mean, it might be 3 years. Okay. So if you know that, then put that on your little pin for your 5 years, like where you want to be in 5 years kind of thing. And just set it and forget it. Okay. Because you're going to have to prioritize your tasks. Because if you're not prioritizing your tasks, you're going to get overwhelmed. You don't have to even just have anxiety. You're going to get overwhelmed, right? Because most people need some form of direction and guidance. We all do. And that's why the time boundness is where so many people fall off when it comes to their goals. Well, there's a few areas, all of them. That's why it exists. The measurability, people don't often measure it. or they go, I'm not sure how to measure it. Well, that's okay. Well, let's just start doing some work and let's look at it. Let's figure out how you would measure it. And it's going to help you prioritize these tasks that aren't really that important to you, or you're going to learn more about your time management. You're not going to burn yourself out, because if you say, okay, I'm going to do this in 5 months, great. Well, how much time do you need to spend each week? How do you need to spend that per day? Like, what does that look like? And it really does force you to go into micro goaling, right? I said, I'm going to redo episode 37, not redo it, just kind of like refresh it a little bit. So you'd have the, on Patreon, you'll have the worksheet, like in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do that, because these things are really important. And you'll find that these SMART goals, it's not just about work. It's about hobbies. It's literally about hobbies too. You can say, like you guys know, I just started playing pickleball. Okay, well, I'm committing 2 to 3 days a week, an hour in those times. And usually it's Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, something like that. And it really is something I just say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm committing an hour, and then I commit to it. So it isn't all just about decluttering and all of these things. It's about trying new things. It's about learning a new language. You know, your brain needs to learn one new thing a day. One new thing a day. I mean, you can learn more. One new thing. So I have a lot of people, and it's not important to me yet, but I do want to pick up another language. I'm not sure which one yet. And I will do it to where I'm learning something new every day, learning a new word, learning the right pronunciation, or whatever the case may be. So again, you can't even set a goal if you don't know what you want, right? The SMART goals are great, but if they're not relevant to you and you're not really sure what you want or why you want it, don't get discouraged by that. Don't get upset by it. Don't say, well, my God, how can I set a goal? I don't even know what I want. Okay, great. So you know how to prevent that piece of it is to start looking at what you don't want. Because sometimes we get so caught up in, I don't know what I want. What do I want? I should want more. What do I need? Like, you start thinking about that, and then that can be overwhelming. So what you do is, instead of looking at sometimes what you do want, look at what you know you don't want, right? Look historically with things, whether it be relationships or friends or time or whatever, money, and what do you not want? And then and write it down. Don't just store this in your head. Write down what you don't want and be specific. Assign these SMART goals to knowing what you don't want. Okay? Because you can say, okay, I got to be specific on what I don't want. Not, I don't want to be sad. Well, what's that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Be very specific. And a lot of times you're going to see, you're going to have the capacity and the willingness to have that radical acceptance. The radical acceptance is going to come in, because there's going to be some things you're just not going to achieve this year, and maybe not next, and maybe not even the following. It might not be as fast as you want it to be, but that's okay. That's where the radical acceptance is going to come into play. And stop thinking that you need these ginormo goals, right? Where you're like, oh, I need to like make more money, and I need to do this, and like all these goals are big. Yeah, well, how about just being consistent with drinking water right now? Like, measure your water drinking. You know, they have all the water bottles that can like measure the water that you're drinking. Cool. That's great. That's why it's there. It's attainable. It's relevant because everybody needs water. It's measurable. You know what I mean? It's like, those are the things that you want to look at. And I will tell you, you really want to look at the people around you. Are these people providing you a safe space, feeling like a safe space to just reach your goals? They don't have to have the same goals. They don't have to desire those same things. They don't. But that doesn't mean that you have to rock with it. So if they're not supporting you, you may want to even set SMART goals with what type of people you want around you. What kind of content do you see? Well, that's easy. You can block what you don't like and just keep it moving. But when it comes to real life, sometimes you're going to have to block people too. Okay, it's not just about online stuff. Sometimes you're going to have to block people. Sometimes you're going to have to open yourself up to meet new people who might be your people. But it isn't something that you're going to just go out and just set a goal if you don't really have a clear direction. And knowing that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you are now and where you're going. Okay, so again, before you even start this process, you really got to ask yourself, what is it that you don't want in your life anymore that is within your control, right? Because, I mean, we don't want debt, but I mean, a lot of that's in your control. But sometimes if you're buying a house, you got 30 years to do so, and sometimes faster. But you have to ask yourself, what is it that you don't want? And then you can start building around that. And you might find when you start thinking of the relevance to self, you're like, wait, do I want that? Wait, maybe I don't want that. Maybe it was my spouse. Well, you know what? Maybe it was my mom. Maybe I just feel like I'm supposed to want that. You're not supposed to want anything. You can want whatever you want. So this exercise and by establishing these SMART goals and even learning SMART goals, it opens up so much for you because it's going to force you to get very, very clear with what you do want, what you don't want, how you're going to get it. Are things important to you? It's going to keep you present. It's going to keep you present because you can't get too far into worrying about what other people want and what this person needs and what that person needs. And then they're not your goals. They were never your goals. They were always somebody else's goals. And so I think for you, that's where you're going to start, is knowing what you want. However, you have to eliminate things, that's fine. And then you start to put together a plan in each area of your life. Don't forget fun. Hobbies, right? Hobbies are fun. Pastimes, exercise, whatever the case may be, everything is important. Everything doesn't have to be learn, productive. I mean, you're going to learn something new, yes. But I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, self-help. Sometimes you just want to decompress from everything. Self-help, dealing with who you are as a person, it's a difficult journey, okay? And sometimes you need a break from it because if you're always just, I need to work on this, you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to give up on it. You got it. But every single day you do have to work on it, just not all day, every day. And so this forces you into time management. This forces you into doing a whole bunch of different things just by doing this one exercise. And that's why you'll see a lot of people reference SMART goals because they are proven to be definitely set you up for more success than if you just think it or you just half write it down or sort of do it, but then you don't really have anything time bound and it becomes a problem. And so, because then it's just very wishy-washy and it just is too broad. And it's like going to a restaurant. Seriously, it's like going to a restaurant that has like 4-page menu. You're like, oh my God, it's so good. And first you're like, oh my God, this is great. There's so many choices. And then you sit down, you're like, oh my God, there's so many choices. Like, you're like, I mean, I don't know. It's like you kind of go on overload. And that's why you'll see a lot of restaurants, they don't have super big menus, right? They give you a certain amount of things to choose from because if not, you're going to be like, well, I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I want this. And then you want this. And then you're upset. Should I have had something else? Now you just have too much thought because everything is too broad. So that's why you'll see that there's a lot of restaurants and places like that have very limited type menus. I mean, not tons to choose from, but just enough. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're taking away the decision fatigue, because the decision fatigue on, well, where should I start decluttering? Oh my God, I don't know. It's all overwhelming. And then you just kind of have that ADHD paralysis, like where you're like, I want to do a lot, but I can't, like I almost can't function because you're trying to do too much with no direction. And again, especially if you're dealing with neurodivergence, you need specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound goals. Like it's not even like, oh, this is cute and fun. No, it is mandatory to your mental health. So start figuring out what you want because this might open up a whole new ball game for you.